What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Trying the Jets Live. I'm your host, Steven Zantz, joined by my co-host, Zantz Russo. We're doing this again, a little Saturday morning live stream. Russo, the Jets are starting to really fill out that staff. How you feeling about it? I feel like everyone's kind of getting excited, just like they always suck us back in.
It's starting to come together, Pepper. Starting to come together. No, I think it's been good. I mean, we haven't chatted. Obviously, we talked right after the hires were made with Muji and Glenn. We haven't chatted since the press conference, which obviously I thought was a huge home run, especially from the Aaron Glenn perspective. But the staff's starting to round out, and you're starting to get kind of a vision of what Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji are seeing here, and how this staff is really going to look in 2025. And I think I'd say that I'm encouraged, to say the least. Right, you have a good blend of young with Engstrand and with guys that have been around the block like Wilks, and then a young up and comer, I'd say, like Banjo. Mm-hmm. But that has the history, obviously, and really getting the nod from Mike Westhoff too, which I think is close to every Jets fan's heart. So you feel pretty good about how this is coming together, man. How are you doing? How are you feeling? How do you what are you thinking about this whole staff and the way it's coming together for you?
I mean, obviously, there's still some moves to be made. Like, we still need more on the offensive staff because right now all we have is Engstrand and Steve Hyden. But it seems like they're going to continue to add to that. I'm hoping that they have that senior offensive assistant, hopefully Haley, like they've mentioned. I'd love Brunell to be quarterback coach. I feel like he's going to end up staying in Detroit, but I don't know. But I'm excited. I mean, we all were kind of getting really over our skis over Nick Caley, and then obviously that fell through. It sounds like he had a conversation with Mike LaFleur based on the things I read about this whole thing as to why he told them he wasn't interested, since they obviously work together now. But we move on, and it's fine. But it's hard to really, other than the lack of play calling experience at the NFL level, get disappointed by hiring Tanner Engstrand. He's coming from exactly what you want the Jets to be, like picking assistants from. Detroit, he was probably one of Ben Johnson's main guys because he was part of the passing game. He was the passing game coordinator. I know he obviously had different roles, I think, over the course of 5 years with Detroit. But I'm definitely intrigued by him. I think that, we don't know how involved he was in terms of like some of the creativity and some of like, the game planning, but he's on that staff. He watched Ben Johnson closely for years. I also like that he has connections to Jim Harbaugh. And the reason I say that is I think Harbaugh is one of the best football minds really this predates him going back to the Chargers. I just think since he got into coaching, it just seems like everywhere he went, his philosophies and his principles always have translated to success in a winning culture. So I like that he's learned under him in two different spots. He was a GA assistant with San Diego before Harbaugh went over to Stanford. And then after his time at San Diego, where he was a play caller, for several years, which I know Connor pointed out on Badlands, he did go back to Michigan as an offensive assistant. So it seems like he definitely values Jim Harbaugh as a mentor, and I'm excited about that. That would indicate to me that they're going to be very run happy because that's such a Harbaugh principle. But again, he is a passing game coordinator at heart, so I feel like he definitely is going to try to be creative in the pass game. But hard to really complain about the process, but again, you really don't know until you see the guy do it. But I do think, even though he hasn't called plays at the NFL level, play calling is play calling, and he's done it, I think, for the better part of 6 years at the collegiate level. So that's encouraging. So it's not like it's going to be his first time on game day, having to, think of ways to adjust mid-game, but also just coming up with creative game plans to beat the opponent. So hard to complain there.
Yeah, I mean, we can't sit here and pretend that we know the ins and outs of Tanner Engstrand and his entire career and what he's going to be about as an OC. But from an overly simplistic standpoint, you say, all right, the Jets went from an offense that refused to use motion and refused to make Breece Hall like a focal part in the passing game, to now go to a guy that was part of an offense that was, without a doubt, one of the most innovative over the course of the last 3 to 4 seasons, that faked the stumble from Jared Goff to score a touchdown, that used two of the better backs in the league in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery to have one of the best rushing attacks. You got to get excited when you think about that, right? Like, that's just kind of what you're looking for, is that kind of innovation. And I think we had that with LaFleur because LaFleur understood what we had in 21 and 22, and had it not been for the offensive line falling apart and Zach Wilson, Mike White saga down the stretch of 22, maybe he stuck around. But you saw some of that intuitiveness, that ingenuity, especially in the red zone, like some of the different things that he would do, which, he realized kind of, he was playing the hand that he was dealt, and he had to do some of that stuff. So that's the stuff that we're looking to get back, not just lining up your guys, not running motion. We're going to just try to beat this with this old school mentality of football. I do think you brought up a good point. And I think when you look at the offensive side of the ball, you're really looking for Aaron Glenn to do what he did on the defensive side, which is bring in that veteran guy, right? Like that veteran voice in the room. We'd love for it to be Todd Haley. Todd Haley was an offensive coordinator for a long time. He was on Parcells' staff. He's a no-nonsense dude. He's a crazy person, but you'd like to kind of have that veteran voice in the room to help bring this younger, more inexperienced offensive staff alone and kind of just be that, that guiding light, I guess. So we'll see what that shakes out. Hopefully it's still kind of, in the cards for us. But from an offensive perspective, the guys that were let go, Keith Carter, you're thanking the staff for doing that, and you're happy with some of the young guns that they brought in here. I think it's looking up right now, so that's good.
I feel like people are going to not like what I'm about to say, but I think we have to give Keith Carter a little bit more credit than he gets. I mean, the offensive line is in a pretty good place since he left. I don't know if that's more about the evaluation from Joe Douglas, who also deserves some credit, but I think Joe Tippmann developed really nicely in year 2. And obviously, I think Olu Fashanu, I don't know if it was Tyron Smith who was helping him a lot or if it was Keith Carter, but we have to kind of give him some credit because the offensive line looks like it's in a good place. But again, I like that there's a fresh voice basically all over the offense. They did retain Sean Jefferson, which I think is a good thing, but also kind of crazy. He's basically the new Brant Boyer. This is the 3rd coaching staff that he's going to stay on. Mm-hmm. I know obviously there was a gap between when he was with Gase and then he came back last year to coach the receivers after they changed it up on the offensive side of the ball. But I'm happy he's there. It seems like he has a good relationship with Garrett Wilson, and I hopefully think that this will be something that will make Garrett want to stay because of the familiarity with his position coach, but also somebody who obviously played. I do want to transition to Wilks because Wilks is really the hire that's gotten me the most excited so far that they've made. I mean, I'm intrigued by Engstrand. I can't even freaking say. I'm just going to call him Tanner. Tan Man, Danny Tanner, Full House, whatever you want to call him. But I'm really excited about Wilks. And the reason I say this is I just think that, you have an adult in the room. I feel like the Jets have lacked adults in the room for a long time based on the coaching staffs that they've had. I would say I'd say you have to go as far as like some of the Rex years, because I just feel like Bowles, Gase, and Saleh never really had those adults in the room. They gave experience to either some of their buddies or some of the guys who just didn't have experience in some of these bigger jobs. And Steve Wilks is a veteran. He's been a head coach in 2 different stints. One as a full-time, and then obviously that was only a year. And then obviously he's the interim with Carolina, but he's also been a respected defensive coordinator. I believe he wasn't the defensive coordinator for the Panthers when they went to the Super Bowl. I think he worked under McDermott. McDermott was there, but he's certainly somebody that I think will command respect. He did play, I think, in the league for a little while, but I just like that he's like a no-nonsense guy, kind of not as crazy, but like in the Greg Williams mold of just like that old school defensive mind who I think the players will gravitate towards. I think he's obviously a little bit more mellow, and I think he's more of like, a leader of men. I think honestly, he has a lot of the same principles as a Glenn. Just Glenn was like the star player, and I think he was more of like, on the cusp of making the roster kind of player when he was in the league. But I'm excited. I just think he's going to bring a lot more blitzing, which this team needs. I feel like they were too stubborn with the system of like, we're only going to rush our guys. We're never going to give them any help, which to an extent it worked. But then when it wasn't working, they were still too stubborn with it, which this year, especially because there was just no pass rush to be found other than Will McDonald. I know Jermaine going down certainly affected that, but you have to adjust your personnel, which is something that seems like Glenn is very, forward thinking in that regard, because he always is about like change your game plan week to week, not necessarily just doing, this is what we do well, we're going to do this every week. We better figure out a way to stop us. And typically teams will stop you if you continue to show the same signs of things. But Wilks is going to be fun. I feel like it's going to be some electric practices. You're going to get some good quotes out of the guy, but he just seems like a good dude. And I'm just excited to have him on the staff. What do you think about Steve Wilks?
Yeah, I like it. The veteran guy in the room, I think a guy that's obviously been around the block. The one knock you could say on him is just kind of the 1 year stops over the course of the last few, specifically that stint in San Francisco, right? But at the end of the day, this guy has had success everywhere that he's gone. I really liked, you talk about the blitz rate, but I see more of like adaptability, which I would assume is going to come, right? Aaron Glenn's going to bring his style of defense. He's going to mold it with Steve Wilks' style. They're going to be able to do that. But I do like how, if you saw Rich Cimini's tweet from the other day, like in 23 under Wilks, San Francisco was 30th in blitz rate, 9th in zone coverage. Go to before that in 19 in Cleveland, he was 4th in blitz rate, 9th in zone coverage. Arizona 1st in blitz rate, 3rd in zone, and Carolina in 17, he was 1st in blitz and 2nd in zone. So clearly, like, he has that adaptability based on the personnel and based on what kind of defense he's running. which you like to see. And I
Mhm.
think that's ultimately, and to your point you just made, like that's really what you want to see from this defense. We don't need to be the Rex Ryan, I'm constantly going to bring one more guy than you can block, because Rex had that ability because he had Revis and Cromartie on the outside. Like not every team has that. So to see kind of the different variations just blend together, I'm really excited about. I want to see a more aggressive style. I do like that in doses, right? Not, always doing it, but definitely just mix it in. But I do like overall just Steve Wilks coming on board here, being that veteran guy that brings the experience there. Good shoulder to lean on for Aaron Glenn, and we'll see how it shakes out. But I like what I think Steve Wilks will bring from a more aggressive style of play on the defense.
Yeah, we've been so barren from like forcing a turnover perspective, and it just seems like maybe it's also fun to catch some interceptions. I do think this will be good for him, both with Glenn and Wilks, just to give him more opportunities to shadow guys instead of playing, more of a zone. I'm excited to see that. I think that he will thrive more. And we saw, when he had tough assignments, especially as a rookie, he was able to handle a lot on his plate. So I'm interested to see how that's going to change with this new staff. We can talk about Banjo as well, even though I don't know a ton about him because he's never been a special teams coordinator. But I like, just that he's a younger coach. He comes from the same tree as Glenn, Sean Payton, Bill Parcells' disciple, former player. He's I think he's like the same age as me. I think he's like 33. So I like that he's young. I do think Westhoff being there, because it hasn't been fully confirmed, but he's basically going to be an advisor. I think on training camp, he'll probably help out and be like a mentor to Banjo. But I'm excited to see what a younger voice can do. I think Brent Boyer, for all the things that we complained about this past year, he was a pretty good special teams coordinator for the most part. I think it was just kind of hot and cold. There'd be moments, in seasons that he was good, and then there'd be times he was terrible. He definitely was better than what we had, in between Westhoff and him. Like, Bobby April was terrible, and there was another guy they had who wasn't very good either.
Bobby April
was horrible.
Nice name drop. Very good.
Yeah, he was bad. But it was just time to move on. We can't keep a special teams coordinator for like the fourth regime in a row. It doesn't make a ton of sense. But I valued a lot of the stuff he did with Braxton when Braxton was here in the return game. So, but I think for specials, it's just more about getting the kicker position right. I don't know if Morstead's going to retire, continue to play. It seems like he hasn't given indication that he wants to retire. And I think he likes playing for the Jets because I think he has a connection to the fan base. But ultimately, they have to get more out of the return game. I don't care if it's a matter of trying different players who are currently on the roster, but also undrafted free agents like a Codrington who we had, in the preseason, who ended up going to Buffalo and being a decent return man. But like, it was just funny that one guy that we had, I forgot, he ended up going on IR, who had the kick return in the Seattle game, was better than anything that we were getting from a Gibson perspective. It's just, I just hope that Banjo's not stubborn of just like, this is the guy who's going to be a returner and he's only going to be the returner the rest of the season. So I hope that he is going to mix and match and try some things. And if somebody's not, getting the job done, especially, as a punt returner, meaning like always fair catching and like just not really having that situational awareness to make the right decision. I just hope that they don't get stubborn on specials because it really cost them a lot of games, especially with the kicker and not like benching him. And he went on IR and it was kind of pathetic how they just basically saved his ass when he was bad. Like, he might have been hurt, but like if he was hurt, why was he playing?
Yeah, I think well said. I think, first of all, you like the move off of Brent Boyer. Like Brent Boyer, to your point, he did some good things over his tenure, and you don't survive, 3 coaching staffs by accident, right? He had to obviously do things well. But at the end of his regime, the special teams just fell off. Like last year, they just weren't good. I mean, Greg Zuerlein was terrible. The kicking situation obviously was not good. Xavier Gibson pretty much wrote it out on one big play that he made in the first week of his NFL career. And he was like glorified ever since then and could do no wrong, when clearly everybody knew kind of that we had better options there. So that's the frustrating part, right? But it's good that, Boyer's out. He went to San Francisco. Okay, great. You bring in a guy like Banjo who played special teams for 10 years in this league and then obviously has been an assistant since then, but then the last 2 years under Westhoff. So I said it in the opening. Westhoff holds a special place in all of Jets fans' hearts. I mean, that guy took anyone and made him into a Pro Bowl returner. You're talking Justin Miller, Chad Morton, Brad Smith, Joe McKnight, like anybody, right? So you have a guy that
even Crow.
Yes. So then you take a guy that worked under Mike Westhoff, who clearly I think Westhoff is going to have some impact here. He's going to have some involvement. you feel pretty good about that. But what I think overall, and outside of special teams, but you bring up a good point, but it just seems like Aaron Glenn with the Parcells mindset, the Parcells lineage, what he said in his presser and in the questions after from the media was that everybody's got a clean slate right now, and he's going to watch the game tape. He's going to watch everybody. He's going to watch every player. There's nothing built up right now, and he's going to hold everybody accountable. So what I would hope is that the guys like Gibson, the guys like Michael Clemens, people like that are going to be looked at with objectivity. And hopefully they make decisions on those guys that make sense and that all of us Jets fans are clamoring for, because what we've seen over the past 2, 3, 4 years from guys like that is they really don't deserve a spot on this team, and we need to clean slate it and start fresh. And there you go. So that's all we can really hope for. But I think just from a higher level sense, you just get that about Aaron Glenn. That's the type of guy that he's going to be. He's got nothing built up with anybody, and he's going to look at it all from a fresh start and make decisions based on that and based on what he's seen with no feeling involved, which is exactly what you want from a head coach.
Yeah, I think it's not emotion. He's going to go do what's right for the franchise, and he said as much in his presser, which we'll talk about in a second. But one thing I wanted to bring up isn't it funny that it seems like Xavier Gibson basically is the more modern version of Stephen Hill? He has this amazing first game in his career and then does absolutely nothing. And for some reason, people keep clinging on to hope, especially the coaching staff. But the funny thing about him is not like he was a second round pick. He was an undrafted free agent. It's teams move off these guys after they get minimal production all the time. I don't understand what they saw. I mean, maybe it's stuff in practice, but he wasn't even in the offensive game plan, which they needed at times because really they were so top heavy at receiver with Garrett and Devontae down the stretch. So it's just it's kind of funny that he basically is Stephen Hill without the second round draft pedigree. And, he's probably not going to be on the team. I'd be surprised if he makes the team. I really do. I don't think he's going to make the team this year.
I never thought of it like that. I really like that analogy. Yeah. I think Stephen Hill came out first game against the Bills, right? He had he had 5 for 96 and 2 touchdowns. And then I think he dropped every pass that was thrown to him from there on.
Yeah. Someone's going to aggregate this or steal this on a Jets podcast or stream, whatever. It's fine. I don't.
That's well done, Zantz. I
know. He kind of
Bobby April and a Stephen Hill analogy in the same podcast. Look at you. Good for you.
I feel like a lot of people I never thought of it like that before, but that's what it is.
That's it. And I think they're giving Gibson more leeway than Stephen Hill got. That's for sure.
I think Stephen Hill was on the team for 3 seasons. I think he was on it from. Oh no, I'm sorry. I take it back. I think he was just 2012 and 2013, and then he was gone. In the last
probably didn't
year.
Catch on anywhere else. I remember that crucial drop in New England in 2012. They could have won that game, and he had a crucial third down drop.
Yeah, it was brutal. But let's talk more about the presser. Even though I don't want to overreact to it, and I think the way I'm approaching, this hire and everything is a little bit different than the past. I kind of was always fanning hard about it and getting really excited. This guy's gonna be the guy to turn around. But I don't know. And I don't want to, put unfair expectations in Aaron Glenn because listen, turning around the Jets is hard. No one's been able to do it. So I don't want people to over expect things. I think just seeing signs of competence and seeing that the team is changing from what it's been over the last 10 years, 15 years, whatever it may be, is what you want to see. And wins obviously is a measurement of that, but also just seeing how things are done. You're not seeing these guys going off on social media all the time. You're not seeing, it's just penalty after penalty and all the lack of discipline, and there's no accountability. It just seemed like it wasn't a well-ran ship. And I'm hoping to see things change. But in terms of the presser, I mean, he did as good of a job as he possibly could. He made everyone want to run through a wall. I got excited. But again, he hasn't done anything on the field. So it's what's the point? But I think the biggest takeaway I had was this is somebody that understands what this franchise is, what it means to, wear the green and white, to play in front of these fans, to be in this market. And I think that it definitely goes a long way. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be good in the role, but I think it's different than somebody who's never coached in this market or played in this market coming in here and be I could be the guy to do it. Like Saleh, Gase, we're not going to talk about Todd Bowles maybe, but I think Todd Bowles was an assistant under Parcells when he was first getting into coaching, but a little bit different than playing or being a high level coordinator
and having him as a mentor.
Yeah. So I think that resonates well with Jet fans, and I just think that like it just shows like how much he cares about the organization. Because like let's be honest, like people were saying this job wasn't desirable, but meanwhile it seems like the Saints job is the least desirable of the bunch, and same thing with the Raiders. And I would even go as far to say like Dallas, unless it was just them not reaching out to the right candidates. But just Glenn really wanting this to be like his biggest challenge and kind of get, the revenge for losing the AFC title game in 1998, which to me, I wasn't following closely, but obviously know all about it. I know about the 10-point lead. My cousins were there. They flew out there for the game and said it was the most painful second half ever. But like the fact that still bothers him and all he wants to do is right those wrongs. I was supposed to say wrong those rights, right those wrongs. I think that's really cool. And I hope that we see, that mindset and that, determination as a coach and really showing that this team's going to turn around quickly. But how did you feel about this presser?
I thought it was a win all around. I thought, let's go to Muji first. I thought Muji was fine. I thought he did
really doing it.
Yeah, the Aaron Glenn story was like cool. He made himself likable and somewhat relatable. He was a little stiff, but I thought overall it was good. And I think he was probably happy that he dodged a lot of the questions from the follow-ups from the media, because most of them, I think all but one, went to Glenn. Mm-hmm. But Aaron Glenn, I thought, if you can win a press conference, like he absolutely did. Again, like you said, I don't want to get out over my skis. I'm not going to say that Aaron Glenn's going to be the best head coach ever. I'm not going to say that we're going to win a Super Bowl with him, but you certainly do feel encouraged. Like and you got to remind yourself, right? Like everything feels good right now. It's different. So that's the first thing. Like it's a change of pace from the previous regime. So you feel good about it instantly because the grass is always greener. Mm-hmm. There are going to be things that Aaron Glenn and his staff do that are going to annoy us, that are going to piss us off, that we're going to wish that he did better. I mean, I live in central New York, and the Bills are the cream of the crop, really, outside of Kansas City. And there are people that bitch left and right about Sean McDermott and what he does. And also, like, we just have to remind ourselves of that. Like, there's going to come a time when we're going to be frustrated with him. But right now, I think you hit the nail on the head with a few things that you said. One, him wanting to right the wrong from the 98 AFC championship in Denver. Like that's something that's unfinished business for him. Like that spoke to my heart, to my soul. That is still probably that's top 2 most painful moments in Jets history. Him saying we're the freaking New York Jets, we're built for this shit. Like that is the kind of stuff that you want to hear, that you're ready to run through a brick wall for. Him getting the backing of all of these Jets former players, guys that didn't even play with him, Damian Woody, Nick Mangold showing up, like that means something. And you think, we kind of talk about this, we allude to it here and there, but like New York, the Jets have to be a special place, because I feel like guys that come at the tail end of their career or at any point during their career, but it's not even the longest stint, they still call like New York Jets like home, and they feel more like a Jet than any other. Tony Richardson, Damian Woody, like perfect like examples of that, right? Where it feels like they're more Jets than any other, team. So all that stuff holds weight. And I just I thought the presser was great. I really did. I thought Aaron Glenn brought it home. I liked the way that he handled the media. I liked the way that he answered the Aaron Rodgers question. I thought everything he did, honestly, was really good. And overall, the fact that he wanted to be here, that he saw this as an opportunity where he could really win, that this has the bones and the structure in place to be able to do that. And maybe his mentality, maybe just it's a combination of everything, of Aaron Glenn, of Muji, of the state of the franchise, of the 14-year drought. Like maybe this is just maybe the fact that he's a former player for this team, a first-round draft pick that played 8 seasons. Like maybe all that is just the perfect combination of stuff to finally like have Woody Johnson and Christopher Johnson look in the mirror, be self-reflective, and ultimately just get it right so they can dig out of this rut and start making things for the better. Like that's all we can hope for, but it does kind of give you that early indication, like maybe that is the route this is heading.
Yeah, I totally agree. And for better or for worse, what he did to kind of have some like a self-awareness moment, saying he needs to be better as an owner, and like whether that happens or not, like at least
direction.
At least he publicly admitted that to the press. I mean, like, I don't know if he's going to change, but at least it seems like he knows the things he's been doing aren't working. He needs to adjust as how he's going to approach being an owner. Yeah. But 2 things I wanted to talk about that you just mentioned, because it was a lot of good stuff. I love that Woody, like Damian Woody, not Woody Johnson, has a Super Bowl ring with the Patriots, but yet he like resonates with the Jets, which is like kind of crazy. You would think that you'd resonate with the team that gave you your biggest moment as an NFL player, as winning a Super Bowl ring, and he loves the Jets, and that's the team that he really like associates himself with. I mean, he probably likes living in New Jersey. It's offered him opportunities off the field since he retired. As a TV guy. And then the thing with you were talking about with McDermott, how things are going to piss us off with Glenn. It's like I feel like McDermott has basically become Aaron Boone, where it's like this team just cannot beat Kansas City, and he's just going to keep getting the brunt of it. Like he's like obviously good at his job, but he's not good enough to beat the gold standard, which is Kansas City. And as a Yankees fan, like I totally see those parallels, but I don't care. The Bills losing was awesome, and I'm sure you were even happier living up there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of you, like I was rooting against them, obviously, and I have friends that obviously close friends that are Bills fans, but they're when they lose, you're happy, and then you feel a twinge of like, oh man, I feel bad. Like you put yourself.
I don't feel bad.
And then I'm like, you know what? I'd rather see them lose here like this than have to deal with them winning the Super Bowl and being insufferable forever. That's the last thing that I need. Especially, they can be happy just after I get mine.
That's totally fair. We have some people in the comments talking about the draft, about like not taking quarterbacks, and someone's talking about Tyler Warren. So I know the Senior Bowl is this week. I will be fully transparent. I don't pay that much attention to it. Whatever I know about the Senior Bowl comes from Connor and Will, who've been on boots on the ground. But the big thing here is the quarterbacks did not impress. And I know there was some like Jackson Dart buzz. I do not want the Jets to take him high. I mean, like if they took him in the third round, sure, but like he should not be going on the field. But I don't even think we have it the run pick because of Devontae. But if they trade it back, whatever, to get more picks,
I think they do. I just think they have Detroit's.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. I take that back. But is there anything that caught your eye from the Senior Bowl this week of any players, or were you not really paying attention like myself?
No, sorry, I wasn't really paying attention. I was more focused on the Jet staff and everything. I saw bits and pieces. I mean, I think Joe Caporoso too was saying in his mentions, there's a lot of people saying take Dart at 7. No. I am not about that. Like, I still think I think the Jets are. I think they're built well enough to be competitive in 2025. Like I think they could be pushing for a wild card berth. They could, maybe make some even more noise. You never know in the NFL, but they're still not good enough to where they don't need a position that will help them on the field in 2025, right? Like at 7, like you need to go out, get a tight end, get an edge rusher, get a interior defensive lineman, like someone that a corner, maybe like someone that will have an immediate impact on the field in 25. So I didn't really pay too much attention. I will say that as a Central New York Syracuse guy, like I like the idea of a swing on Kyle McCord in the late rounds, but yes. Yes.
I watched him at Ohio State with way better talent around him.
I watched him in Syracuse with way less talent around him, and I like him. And I think if you take a 3rd, 4th, 5th round flyer on him, I wouldn't be upset about that. That's McCord's my guy. I'm a homer. I'm going to admit it, but I'm with it.
I disagree.
It doesn't happen often, but it happens.
I want to close with this. I mentioned this in the Discord, so if anyone who's watching, listening, whatever, they probably saw my comment about this. But Peter Schrager was on New York yesterday with John Jastrzebski. Great podcast. It's basically the closest thing you're going to get to like peak WFAN because it's New York sports, but it's not like gimmicky. It's more like the meat and potatoes of it with like callers and also just the stuff that JJ talks about. So a lot of the segment he had with Schrager, they're talking about the Jets, talking about like what went wrong. Schrager was saying he just like couldn't believe that everything just went completely sideways so fast because he was obviously very high on the Jets. I feel like he's always been high on the Jets for the last few years, especially with Saleh. It seems like he has a good relationship with Saleh. They talked about Rodgers, and basically he was asking Schrager, JJ was asking Schrager, like, what do you think? What's your lean on what's going to happen with Rodgers? Because it kind of sounds like there's no real, like, we've always been saying it all signs point to him being like gone, retired, whatever he may be. But Schrager says he thinks that he might come back because they really don't have another viable option, which to be fair is true. He certainly makes the most sense. I'm not saying I want him, but like if they decide they want to go with him, it's fine. I feel like if he was definitely retiring, this stuff would be already out by now. Cause like, I feel like he still wants to play, because if he didn't want to play at this point, it's been about a month since the season ended, he would know. I feel like he has an interest in playing. So Schrager leans that he's definitely going to come back. He also pointed out that a lot of the media stuff about like the beef with him and Woody is not true. It's like they're not like best friends, but he pointed out that they're fine. Like they have a working relationship. He's obviously closer with Christopher because there was a report about the dinner that they had, and initially it was Woody, but it was really Christopher. So I don't think that there's really this huge beef. I mean, I don't think Rodgers likes the way the organization's been run. Obviously, firing a lot of people and all like the leaks and everything. But it seems like since the offseason happened, there's been no leaks at all. Like, what leaks have there been? I got to give them a little bit of credit. So I'm curious what your thoughts are about Rodgers coming back. I know both of us were pretty firm that we didn't want him back. I still in that camp, but like I've warmed up to it more, even though I just want them to get rid of the financial implications, be able to build around a young quarterback in 2026. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, there's still so much else that goes into Aaron Rodgers being your quarterback outside of just him being the QB on the field for game day in 25. Mm-hmm. Like I think anybody with two eyes can see that like he didn't play poorly in 25 and that he may very well be the best on-field option for the Jets, but you just kind of, I don't know. I don't want to get caught in a trap of like I did last year, right? I looked at it in a vacuum and I said the Jets went 7-10 and lost a lot of close games in 2023. They rarely got to score 20 points. So if you just insert Aaron Rodgers into that equation, then clearly you're going to be 11-5, 11-6, and win the division or get a wild card berth. So I can't make the same mistake and say, okay, well, if you just take Aaron Rodgers and the Jets led team from 24 and you insert Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilks in this defense and get some help on the defensive line and the defense is 25% better, well, then they close out, 6 more games and they get themselves to 11-6. Like, I don't want to get caught in that. And I think I'm more on the fence than I've been. Definitely. I'm more divided, maybe 50-50, 60-40 in favor of Rodgers going. But ultimately, I think I feel comfortable with whatever Glenn and Muji and the staff decide, knowing that will be their best case scenario. There's still something about it where I have this pit in my stomach and in my chest that like, I'm a very big believer in Garrett Wilson. I didn't like how, and I don't want to center all of my focus on Garrett, but I do feel like he is the most important player on the team. Mm-hmm. And I don't like how the tail end of the season went and the way that it seemed with Rodgers and Devontae and Garrett kind of on the outside looking in, because I just think that Garrett is like the best, most talented player on this team. And I don't want that to impact it. So if it's Sophie's choice and I got to choose between Garrett Wilson and Aaron and Devontae, I'm going to choose Garrett Wilson. So that's the other part that factors in. But ultimately, man, I don't have a say in the matter. Like if Glenn, I have to trust that Aaron Glenn can manage that and all that relationship and that dynamic and make the choice that's right for the franchise in 2025 and beyond. But there's, like you said, dude, there's so much more that goes into that decision than just on-field play.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I mean, like at the very least, if he does come back, he's not getting his buddies. Like they've hired completely different offensive staff. Yeah. They're not tailoring to him. So I guess that would make me feel better about it. But I would say like a month ago, I was like 95% like I don't want him back, 5% like sure, but like why not? I'd say that I'm more 80-20 now. Yeah. I don't think I'll get low. I don't think it'll change more than that because like ultimately I think it's just a little bit more realistic than I believed it to be when the season was winding down. But look, I'm fine with Tyrod. I think I understand the concerns about him not being able to stay healthy for a 17-game schedule, but like it's also like, what if he can? Like everyone said Rodgers wouldn't play 17 games and he did, and we won fucking 5 games. Excuse my language. I just like,
that's the other intriguing part of it, and I think is Tyrod, right? I think like there's a big part of me that thinks I would feel really comfortable with Tyrod as a starting quarterback in 25, given he stays healthy. But recent history says he can't. But even if it's for 14 or 15 games, like he was healthy for 2 years in Buffalo, and they did, they were okay. They
broke their playoff drought. That's what I'm saying. Why can't they do that for us?
They were exactly so like. That's the other part of this where I think I lean more Tyrod and a rookie with Jordan Travis. Like that's kind of the route that I want to go because I just think that may be a better dynamic for the offense and for the team overall. I didn't mean to cut you off though. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. But about Jordan Travis, like with all due respect, fans need to stop thinking this guy's anything. Mm-hmm. Like to me, he's Cam Clark at this point. Like he isn't even practiced. Like come on. Like he's not a viable option to do anything. No. Like I will love to eat my words and him be something. I don't see it. Like he was obviously a good college player, but that knee thing was just terrible. So I don't know when next time we're gonna do a stream because ultimately I don't think there'll be major news. I mean, there could be some front office updates. There could be some more like staff updates. So since the Jets don't play a game, we typically would pick games. I have to get your Super Bowl pick. So what's your Super Bowl pick? You can make it quick. You don't have to give me any justification.
Do I need scores?
I'll
I'll say Eagles 31-27.
Wow. You're going against Thanos, huh?
Now that the Bills are out of the way, I can root against the Chiefs again.
So I love Mahomes. As long as he's not playing us, I kind of root for him because I really want him to surpass everything that Brady's ever accomplished. I mean, selfishly as a Jets fan, I feel like there are a lot of Jets fans that feel that way as well, just like me. I also live closer to Philadelphia, so I don't love Philly fans. I hate the Sixers more than I hate the Eagles, just because they're in the Knicks division. But man, until I see someone other than Brady or Burrow beat him in a playoff game, I'm never picking against that guy. So I'll say like 35-27 Chiefs. The one by touchdown.
Right. Fair enough.
Yeah. I how do you pick the guys?
You can't pick against them. I know
you can't.
Like you can't. But
like
I'm
picking
with my heart, not my mind.
Well, one of us will be right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, youtube.com/@BadlandsTOJ. You'll get our live streams whenever we go live, which has been weekly lately. You will also get snippets and shorts of Badlands and any other content that we're doing on the feed. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, wherever you listen to your podcast. Just search Turn on the Jets Live in the search bar. You should be able to find it. And then make sure to give us a review. 5 stars would be great. It goes a long way to help the show. And obviously, if you are watching this or listening to this, you probably are aware of Badlands. But if you are not a Badlands subscriber on Patreon, now's the time. Streets of Fire is just around the corner. I know Joe just sent out the guest list. They got Damian Woody. They got Steve Gelbs. They got DJ Bienemy, who's going to dump some notes, I know, about his time covering Joe Douglas. So that should be interesting. We also have Jason from Over the Cap. So it should be a lot of fun. I know that there's going to be more, with the draft guide, the free agency guide. And then obviously there's going to be the live show in April, which I'm trying to attend. I know there's plenty of promotions there, but I do appreciate everybody. And I know Russo does as well. We'll talk to you soon.